Thank you for joining us again on This Week with Sabir Live. And next in our hot seat is Kristina Bucaram, also known as FullyRawKristina, in the world of YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, you name it. Just to kind of, in the way of introduction, just to kind of give you background, Kristina is the founder of the brands Fully Raw Media, Raw Fully Organic, Fully Raw Juice, and Fully Fit. Is a writer, speaker, content creator, vegan inspiration, who aims to educate and to guide people towards healthy living and well-being. I actually very interesting background, right? Kristina went on, to have this sort of life because of her battle with type 2 diabetes, and where you can take an adversity like that and turn it into an amazing lifestyle and opportunity, not just for herself, but also to help like all of mankind and womankind or X-kind, whatever you want to. I don't want people to get upset that I just said men and women. So it's a plant-based, raw, vegan lifestyle is what she leads and also preaches and shares and everything. There's quite a lot about Kristina's background, and I wanted to bring her on as a guest on this show so that she can share her growing pains. It's not been easy, right? There's been quite a lot of bumps in the road, like always. In my case, I call it the scars on my back. If I take my t-shirt off, you can see all the deep scars, So that's just the reality of running a business, and that's what it is. Even your personal brand is your business. Well, Kristina, welcome to the show, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. Sabir, you hold such a special place in my heart just because I love your family. And for those of you who are watching with us today, Sabir came to my Bali retreat with his daughter, and he was just one of the people. I don't know how long I've known you. I know it's been years now, Sabir. I don't know
how long. It's been a while.
It's been like 3 years maybe?
Yep.
I just remember that you really helped me to overcome closing my co-op years ago, and he'd asked me to do this exercise that really helped pull the past into my present and helped me move forward in my current business. And so Sabir, I just think the world of you, and I thank you for all that you do and all that you contribute. You're such an amazing brain and an amazing human.
This whole body is just brain. That's all it is. There's no other body parts, which is good.
For people who don't know you, it's like accurate statement,
Well, so most importantly, like Kristina said, so Kristina and I have known each other, not professionally, but also personally. We've become very good friends. She's become very good friends with my daughter also, and helped her with her diet. And I can tell you, this is not supposed to be a diet claim or anything like that. When my daughter was fighting her weight gain because of many reasons, which I don't want to go into right now, she had gotten all the way up to like 200 pounds. A girl that was 105 pounds to jump to 200 was pretty extreme for her. And Kristina, thank you for being part of her life. And actually with your guidance and everything, she definitely went down from, and it was a very short period. It was like 12 weeks, 15 weeks, something like that. And believe it or not, 12, 15 weeks is not that long, and we got her weight down to 115 pounds, 115 from 200, and in a very healthy way. Like the skin is it's great. She feels great. And all of that stuff. And you got to finally meet her, even though you helped her, you finally got to meet her in Bali.
I did. It was so much fun. And I love your daughter, and I love you. I love your whole family. You're wonderful.
Thank you, Kristina. You're amazing. So I know you. I mean, I'm one of those people. Before I got to know Kristina, I actually binge watched every single episode of her YouTube video, every single thing. I wanted to know everything about her because I said this is the way to get to know people. At least, everything from the raw food recipes to the dog you were trying to rescue in Bali that was hit with a car. I remember those things, because I watched every one of those things.
Thank you.
To kind of just get to know you as a human being, and it comes through. It's like beyond the lens, right? There are a lot of people who are in front of the lens. They're a different person, and behind the lens, they're a different person, in a negative way, I mean, but in your case, I think the person in front of the camera and behind the camera is the same person, and that's how I got to know you in the past several years. So I know you. I want you to kind of tell my audience who you are. And our focus of our conversation is not going to be raw foods and vegan, even though you're amazing at that. It's going to be about the business of running your business, your brand, your business and personal brand, and all the challenges and stuff like that. Because this is a master class, and at the tail end of it, I am going to ask you the hard question. If you've seen any of my other interviews, it's going to be your $100,000 insight into helping others, and then how they can gain from your expertise and experience, and what they should look out for. But first, let's go through this journey over the next 55 minutes now that's left on the clock. So first, tell me a little bit about yourself.
My name is Kristina Bucaram, and people call me FullyRawKristina because I've been a raw vegan for 15 years now. I just celebrated my 15-year raw-versary. I've been a raw vegan 15 years. Kind of crazy to think about that. So also because they can't say my name. So FullyRawKristina actually suits me better in many cases. My last name, for whatever reason, seems to be kind of difficult. Sabir, I feel like you can relate to that. Maybe.
But my name is pronounced always the wrong way. Always, 100%. Even now, I'm actually using it and saying this week with Sabir. Sabir is not my name. That's a mispronunciation of my name, but that's what everybody pronounces my name. So I stick with it, That's become my trademark name now.
No one even tries with my last name, so it's okay. So I began my journey when I was 16. I was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, and within like a 2-year time period, my health went on a serious decline. By the time I was 18, I ran into a stranger at the grocery store. His name was John Rose at the time, and he introduced me to raw foods. And I went raw vegan in one night, and I never went back. Now, what does it mean to be raw vegan? I basically took out everything from my diet except for fruits, vegetables, and nuts and seeds. So that means no meat, no dairy, no grains, rice, breads, pastas, things like that.
Basically, let me summarize it. That was a cultural blasphemy, given yes. Where you come from, Lebanese background and Ecuadorian, right?
Exactly. You basically summed it up just like that.
Where the culture depends so much on meat.
Yes, I made the conscious choice to switch my diet in doing this because I had felt at the time I was 18. I was 87 pounds and I'm almost 5'7". So I essentially felt like I'd hit rock bottom, and doctors were telling me all the things. They were basically telling me I was going to live with this for the rest of my life, and I had no solution and to only eat packaged goods and sugar-free this and sugar-free that, or made for diabetics. And it had just gotten to the point of where I felt so horrible that my life was basically all blackout migraines, nausea, vomiting, high and low blood sugar spells. I mean, the list went on, and like all of my symptoms just compiled one after the other, and I dealt with it for 2 years. And so when someone approached me and asked me if I'd ever just tried a raw food approach, I didn't even know what raw foods were at the time. Texas 15 years ago, and I'm Lebanese Ecuadorian. No, I had no idea. That was so strange.
However, that's number 3, right, Kristina?
What?
Texas, every corner besides a church, it's a barbecue restaurant.
It is. Yeah. It is. So I think, at that time, 15 years ago, recycling was just becoming popular, like not even vegetarianism. People knew who vegetarians were, but they were considered like the strange, smelly hippies, right? Yeah. And I think not a lot of people knew what vegan was, but they definitely thought vegan was crazy. And raw vegan was unheard of and considered psychological issue related, So there I was, deciding to go raw vegan for my health when I was 18 in Texas 15 years ago. And, it interesting because John Rose, he basically met me at a Whole Foods and he was like, well, just, pick your favorite fruit. And I think you should mono-meal one fruit for 2 weeks, essentially.
Mono-meal?
Mono-mealing, meaning just eating one fruit at a time for a certain period of time to help your body rebalance. Mm-hmm. And I didn't even have a favorite fruit at the time because I didn't grow up eating a lot of fruits and vegetables like I do now. So I just remember it was July 15th and I saw peaches out of the corner of my eye. So I said, okay, peaches. And I was 87 pounds that day. And I walked out of that store with like 4 cases of peaches. And it was like 90 pounds of peaches. So more than my body weight in peaches. And I learned how to eat fruit in abundance. And I did that for 2 weeks. And within 3 days, my blood sugar...
You're jumping the gun, Kristina.
Oh.
When you took those cases home, what was your family's reaction?
I'm jumping the gun. I don't remember too much. I mean, I do remember the girl at the checkout counter's reaction. She's like, are you starting a restaurant? I was like, no. I remember her reaction because she gave me the more weird one. I think my parents, I don't know what they thought. They didn't think I was serious about this until a couple weeks after I'd already done it. You know what I mean? So my first couple of days doing it, they were just like, she's losing it, like whatever. She's trying peaches and, who knows what. But then it wasn't until a couple of weeks after when I started getting into not just eating one fruit or peaches, but I started making salads and eating more fruit. And then my parents noticed, okay, you haven't eaten meat in a couple of weeks. What's going on? All right, now you're saying no to our food multiple times. Like once was like, okay, but now multiple times, what's going on? So, it was really difficult with my family. Don't get me wrong. It was very dramatic for a long period. I mean, and my mom shared this with you at the retreat. She didn't talk to me for 4 years. So wait, my mom wasn't at the retreat that you were at, was she?
No, she was not. But I had spoken to her over Skype. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So she, my mom didn't talk to me for 4 years. She was really upset about it, and she tried everything she could to get me to not be a part of this lifestyle. Not because she was against it, but because she didn't understand, and she was really afraid for me. For instance, somebody here just said, sugar question, doesn't the sugar in fruit cause an insulin response during fat gain? Do you combat this with moderation and meal timing for body composition, or is there something else? So I think the thing that people don't recognize for type 1 and type 2 diabetics is that you can still eat fruit and thrive. And if you do a high carb, low fat diet, you can actually thrive super easily. As a diabetic on a raw or vegan diet. Fruit is not the enemy. Actually, fat tends to be worse for us. And I grew up on a very, very, very high fat diet, basically olive oil. I grew up eating olive oil and nothing else. When I look back at it, it's like raw meat and dairy and olive oil. Olive oil was just on everything. Not to say that I ate a bunch of junk food, but every time I tell somebody that I was a diabetic and I healed myself by eating fruit, they're always mind blown by it. But the truth is that the sugar in fruit is not the enemy. The sugar from processed foods and cakes and cookies and pastas and oils and things like that, that's a part of the problem. So I actually...
Isn't there some sort of a stat that Americans, I think I may have seen it on a documentary, I don't want to be wrong about this, but I think it's every average American consumes like their body weight in sugar, basically, every year. Gosh. Something like that. It's a big number. I have no words for that. If that's true, oh my gosh, that's pretty bad. Anyways, Tom, I hope that answers your question a little bit. So, basically, I mono-mealed on fruit for my first 2 weeks to stabilize my blood sugar. And then I started incorporating more greens. Before I knew it, I was doing only fruits and vegetables. And also keep in mind, I had taken out
all of these other things from my diet. So I was only eating fruits and vegetables. And, you know, before I knew it, 2 weeks turned into 30 days. And I was like, wow, I'm raw vegan 30 days. But I significantly started feeling better. I started putting on the necessary weight that I needed. My migraines and headaches went away. My blood sugars began to stabilize. I began to wean off insulin. And the best part came about 6 months later when I started to feel like a normal human. And I ended up interning with Dr. Graham and learning more from Gabriel Cousins. And then, you know, learning these studies by traveling and by listening to people at the time who were doing this, which at the time was not so many people. Now there's a handful of doctors teaching this and so many. But at the time, 15 years ago, Facebook wasn't quite around like it was now. You couldn't just connect with people on social media or on any kind of, you know, media forum like this. Mm-hmm. So, and back then people had terrible websites. You know what I mean? Like they had HTML websites. So yeah. God bless technology that has come this far. So I ended up reversing my diabetes. It took me 1.5 years to do, but over the course of a period of time with no medication and just food became my medicine. Eventually I did reverse my type 2 diabetes. So yeah, that was the beginning of my story, essentially.
Did you read up on, because as Sahar my daughter was getting into this kind of a lifestyle when she needed help, I started reading about a lot of content from Charlotte Gerson also, Dr. Charlotte.
Yeah,
Dr. Gerson's daughter.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Did you look into that at that time also yourself, or you found out about her later?
No, I knew about her. It was more so just they're pioneers in this lifestyle, and they all teach a different way of eating. Like some are high carb, low fat, some are high fat, low carb, and some are more superfood oriented. And I basically, who resonated with me the most at the time, and I feel like still resonates with me today, was Dr. Graham's method of 80-10-10. Which is best for diabetics actually, because it's the lower fat approach. I'm able to consume more fat in my diet now because I've been doing this 15 years. So I can have 3 avocados in a sitting, no problem. I'll get full really quickly, but I can do that. Whereas before I really couldn't do that without seeing a blood sugar spike. But Dr. Graham basically teaches, you know, eating fruit and greens all day essentially, and reducing the amount of nuts or seeds that you're consuming as to help your body process things a little bit easier, because nuts or seeds can be heavier. Oftentimes in the raw food diet, people think that you get all your protein from your nuts or your seeds, but that's not actually the case. You get the majority of your protein from eating leafy greens, and even fruit has protein in it. So yeah, it's like it's so important to eat an abundance of fruit, because that's essentially where you get your calories, and to consume as many fresh greens and herbs as possible.
Very cool. Now, so you started this journey, right? So this is the beginning part of your journey is self-healing. You're finding great things about this experience, right? When do you decide to like start sharing? I don't know if sharing is sitting in a circle and sharing, because Facebook didn't exist at that time, right? Or it was just coming about. When did you start sharing it, and then when did it come into this digital social realm of sharing?
Okay, well, I'll share with you one story, because I feel like your daughter would appreciate this if she ever watches this replay. I started trying to share when I was in college, because I would always share with everybody that I met. I really didn't have that many friends in college. It was really difficult for me to make
I'm still
friends.
working on friends, by the way, Kristina. I don't have friends either.
It was really difficult for me to make friends in college, especially when I first went to Vanderbilt, because I was on a grant for art. Because you know this, I wanted to be a potter. I wanted to be a ceramicist at the time. So I was in art school and at Vanderbilt, which is a very sorority, fraternity driven school. So I was basically by myself all the time in the art room or in the music theory room or wherever I was. And my dorm hall was just like all girls that were in sororities, and I was probably the only girl who wasn't. So I was always on my own. And I'll never forget, like, all the girls in the hall made fun of me quite a bit, because I would always like roll by with like my cart of watermelons or my cart of bananas or my cart of lettuce. Like, as a college kid, talk about humiliating. I'll never forget. I had two stories, but this one time, I remember I had to take a 2-hour bus to go to the grocery store every week because I didn't want to eat the cafeteria food. Because college cafeteria food is quite awful unless you're doing the salad bar. So I would go take a bus for 2 hours to go to, I think it was called the Wild Food Market at the time. It's kind of like Whole Foods in Tennessee at the time. But anyways, I'd go stock up. And I just remember I'd just gotten back on a Saturday. And I went into this elevator with like this huge cart of watermelons. And all of a sudden, all of these really hot frat guys just like entered the elevator and just started surrounding me. And there I was, just like tiny Kristina in the middle of the elevator with a huge cart of watermelons and all these hot guys. And all of them just were looking at me. They were just like, nice melons, you know? And I just remember, oh God, please make it end. I'm only on the second floor. So anyways, doors opened and I exited and I was like, that wasn't humiliating or anything. On a scale from like 1 to 10, it was probably like a 7. Anyways, stories like that happen to me all the time. People definitely make fun of me on campus, but I'll never forget this one story where I just remember I was walking down my hall and the girls in my hall would always conglomerate in, you know, one dorm or another, and all like 10 of them or whatever would be in a dorm room together, and they'd be brushing each other's hair and doing each other's nails and like hanging out and doing girl things. Of course, I was never invited. But I do remember just this one time I walked by one of their rooms and the door was open and they were all hanging out in there and a movie was on and, you know, they were talking. One of the girls I heard whisper, "That's her. That's the really weird one. She's like always eating bananas." And I just heard that, and I just stopped with my backpack, and I remember thinking to myself, oh, "Is that me? Am I the weird one?" I was like, that kind of sucks that they think that about me because I was so quiet at the time, like I just didn't talk to people. So I don't know what made me do this, but I backed up a few steps and I walked into the room, and I was like, "Hey guys, I'm Kristina," and they were all like, "I hope she didn't hear us." That like look of hi. Yeah. And it was the first time ever where I had just started talking to people who didn't understand and just said hi. I'm like, "Hey, I'm, you know, down the hall in the other room." And they were like, "Yeah, I know." And then finally one of them just asked me and they were like, "So we noticed you're always eating fruit all the time and like carrying in huge boxes of fruit." And then I just sat down and started sharing my story with them. The second I did that, they all were just nodding their heads. They're like, "Yeah, oh my gosh, okay, I had no idea. You're reversing your diabetes, amazing." And then they became supportive. And then after that, it was like somehow they all ended up in my room watching musicals and then making smoothies with my NutriBullet, even though I didn't even have a kitchen in my room. And
yeah, it's a dorm room, right?
In my dorm room.
Yeah.
Yes, talk about dedication. But it took that one experience for me to realize that if you keep something to yourself, you can't impact people, not much less have them understand. When you keep things to yourself, people actually think that there's something wrong with you. But the more that you share something and you share it with enthusiasm and joy and you share the best parts of it, people see that and they want that because people want to be happy. People want to feel good. And I took that lesson and those communication skills and began to apply them to my family as much as possible because I realized I was being really quiet with them too. And the more quiet I was and not sharing with them why I was doing what I was doing and why I was passionate about it, they just thought there was something wrong with me. So the more I began to open up to people and share, "You should go raw vegan and you should try this." And I got really excited and just started sharing it with everybody. I think that's where I first started sharing, was just within my circles and on college campus and really testing the waters with my family. I transferred to Rice a year and a half later, and moved back to Houston essentially. And somehow I ended up being on the environmental committee in Houston, at Rice University. And me and 12 other students essentially started the first farmers market on campus. And it was once a week. And I just remember our first day that it happened, only 4 farmers showed up. And I ended up becoming really good friends with one of the families, the Gundermans. And that was kind of the beginning for me, because I saw how much support and help that they needed. And I really loved their food. But every week when they came, I was basically buying everything that they had. Mm-hmm. So what ended up happening after that is I ended up starting my own produce co-op, which ended up being a mix between wholesale and local produce, all organic. And I ended up calling it Rawfully Organic, because we organized boxes that were full of raw foods and they were organic. And my first day of having co-op, I did it in my garage and had like 7 people be a part of it. It was tiny, right? And I was still in college. I still had 2 years left of college while I was doing this. And I was simultaneously working a tutoring job. I was a tutor for 6 years. By the way, Michael Harms, I see you on. Good to see you, Michael. Love you. Yeah, so I did.
I think he promised that he would be here.
Did he? Aw, yeah. Love it. Good to see you, Michael. And yeah, so basically I was a tutor for 6 years and I ran my co-op for 11 years. Now the co-op started small and then expanded quickly. So I think my first week we had 7 people, and I definitely created a bit of interest in my neighborhood, because it was like the next week or the week after that, I had 40 people picking up produce out of my garage. And it was something I was so passionate about and I couldn't stop talking about because I was so excited. I just thought the world needs to be eating more fruits and vegetables, locally grown. Everyone needs to go vegan. And it had changed my life at that point, and I had definitely reversed my diabetes. So I was sharing my story with whomever and whoever I came in contact with, even if they didn't care. I would share it. And before I knew it, within just a couple of months, I had 100 people picking up produce out of my garage.
From 7.
out of my garage, I know. And I'm like, wow, I think about it now and I'm like, I was hustling produce out of my garage, Sabir. Yeah, but I loved it. It was so much fun. And I was doing it while I was in college. And I remember at first it was every Thursday. And I remember some of my professors let me leave class so I could go home and do it. And I had, women in my neighborhood who would help me sort the boxes. And before I knew it, my professors were in my co-op too, and they would drive to my house and pick up boxes. And they would let me off early from class so that I could go and do this, because as it grew, they saw that it was such a huge responsibility for me. Mm-hmm. And I was still, eventually I let go of helping run the market at Rice and I just focused on my own thing. But at the point where it hit like 300 people picking up out of my garage, the neighborhood association basically kicked us out of the house and said, sorry, can't be here anymore. You're causing a neighborhood disruption.
Yeah, you can't run a farm in our community.
What are you talking about? The whole neighborhood is in the co-op. Like, what do you mean it's a neighborhood disruption? It was really just one guy who was I don't know how you say it, but he was like the head honcho of our neighborhood association. He just didn't like me. He didn't like that I was doing good things. And, I don't know why, but he just didn't like me.
There are people like that,
how do you describe people like that? They're like threatened by your success, and they're like, they don't want you to bring people together, and they just want things to be quiet. And I don't know how you...
Kristina, this is what I do. I've learned that I cannot change people.
I know. Anyways, this was a long time ago. So
I just let it go now. Go like, know what? No amount of Sabir is going to change this. I'm not going to, at its root, I need to start with the foundation. I need to spend time with them. I need to do all these things. Not going to happen. No amount of Sabir is going to help. Yeah, they need help with their business. I can help them. With all of this other stuff, I can't help. like
I know.
people making stupid comments, racism, all sorts of things like that. You like, it gets to a place where do you even start? Like at the
Yeah,
fundamental level, they're lacking.
right.
Yeah.
So I ended up making a deal with him. We ended up, he allowed us to use the parking lot at the beginning of our neighborhood, which was nice. And we went from having, 300 people a week to more than that pickup each week. And then we ended up having twice a week pickups because I couldn't handle, I would be standing there from 3 p.m. as soon as I got out of college, I got out of class. I'd get there from 3 p.m. and I'd be leaving at like 10 p.m. I'd be on my feet on cement all day sorting boxes. And like at the time there were no electronic checkouts. I couldn't swipe cards. So I was like taking cash and had my box and writing people's orders on notebooks. It was so old school 15 years ago. Like I just look at the technology now. I'm like, people have no idea how easy they have it. For
Where
those
were
of us
Square
that had to make,
payments? Where were Square payments at that time? Where was iPhone?
not there. I had one of those Nokia walkie-talkie phones
Yeah,
that my
yeah.
dad got me at the time. It was, God bless that thing. It got me through college. Um, yeah, so basically what ended up happening was that location ended up getting complaints because we were really close to a local grocery store and they complained about us taking away their business. So eventually I got the call like one day at the end of co-op and they just said, hey, we're really sorry you can't be here anymore. This grocery store has an issue with you. You're taking away their business. We're going to have to shut you down. And I was so upset. I literally thought it was the end for me. I was crying and in the middle of the parking lot by myself with maybe like two of my friends, just sobbing my eyes out. And one of the farmers that day knew that I was like feeling super sad. So he brought me a crate of like the most delicious sun-warmed, organic, non-GMO baby corn. And I ate the whole case of corn. It was like 22 ears of corn. I like depression ate corn. I was like, so, most girls get on the couch and watch Bridget Jones' Diary and eat a tub of ice cream. What my sad moment looked like was me alone in a parking lot with a crate of corn. I did throw up quite a bit the next day because like it was too much for me to digest. But what ended up happening is I ended up kind of getting online that night because I had essentially at that point, I think we'd been into the co-op for a couple years at the time. And I essentially we had a Facebook group for our co-op and I had just put out, or it was a Facebook page. I don't know if it's the same one that Roughly Organic has now, but I know Facebook changed a few times then because remember it went from only having personal accounts and then they created pages and then you could...
It may have been pages at that time, not group yet.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what it was, but it was the first of the old school things. And I just put out a message saying, hey guys, I'm really sorry. I'm heartbroken. I might have to close co-op. They don't want us here. I don't know where to go. And I just remember waking up the next morning and I had several missed messages on my phone from places all over the city of Houston saying, hey, we heard what happened. We love you. Use our parking lot. Just come. We want you. It was like the Houston Arboretum reached out. I had, museums in downtown Houston reach out to me. All different locations had reached out. And so we went from having one location one day a week to having 3 locations 3 days a week. And from there, it just became a whole operation and it became my life for 11 years. So within the time period of that 11 years, we serviced 52,000 people in Houston.
Wow.
And supported many farmers and the Gunnermans. Like I want to say around like 10 acres when I first met them. It could be something a little bit more, but now they have over 500 acres. So they significantly grew in that time. And it was just amazing. So they were just, they grew, and it was really cool to see other local farmers like that grow in the time. And it's just really sad to me now because I feel like I've seen so many farmers go out of business in the past 5 or 6 years that I've closed my co-op. And it kind of breaks my heart a little bit. So I closed my co-op, what was it, about 4 years ago? And that's probably around the time I met you, Sabir, because I remember I remember messaging with you not too far after, because it was such a difficult time in my life. When Amazon bought out Whole Foods, I was affected by that. And basically I had to close, forced to close. So it all happened within 1 week or 2 weeks too. So yeah, it was just something that I wasn't prepared for, and it was very difficult and sad, and I was really traumatized and devastated by it, because it was like every day for 11 years I was doing this 14 hours a day. I knew how to do this. I'd made it. Your life. It was my dream, and it was my dream life. I think I would have continued to do it till I was in my 90s, 100, my 200s, had nobody stopped me. But it was kind of like the rug was ripped from underneath my feet. So I didn't really know how to process things at the time. So I remember there was so much happening in my life at the time, and so many different lessons and betrayals. And, when you're kind of like at the top of the ice cream cone, things are different. And then when everything melts, you have to deal with all of the parts. And so I ended up going to Bali to basically find healing and to process what had happened, because being in Houston was far too painful for me at the time. And that journey was like a brand new journey for me, and ended up healing me in so many different areas and levels of my life. And that journey became, I guess, the impetus for me starting retreats and helping people go on their healing journeys as well. And so, yeah, I started doing retreats after that, only because I think after a while of me trying to figure out, well, look, I really miss the community aspect. Like, I love being online. I love making YouTube videos and this, but being social and like on a screen is different from handing somebody a box of produce each week and giving them a hug and having human to human interaction. And I was so used to that, not just with like 1 or 2 people, but there were times where I'd see like 1,000 people a day. So I went from seeing a ton of people so many times a week to all of a sudden just not seeing anybody. And that's kind of difficult to cope with sometimes. So the retreats gave me a community aspect of it, where I could still be around people and love people, and also still do my online stuff. So I'll give you my transition into how I started making YouTube videos.
But before we go there, so Kristina, before we go there, now you're closing up your co-op, right? And you and I went through this exercise, right? And whatever you feel comfortable with to share here. As far as the growing pains, first, you're growing up as a human being, right? Just aging, like being a kid, a college kid, to being and going through that transition to being a young adult, right? One, life is throwing all sorts of lessons at you, right? Personal as well as business, right? You had never run a business before, right? Except for your tutoring. So that was one-on-one. Now you're running this co-op, to working with people and getting to know people, right? What were some of those lessons learned from kind of those growing pains as you were transitioning to, like, almost through that process, you kind of transitioned out of being a kid to being a young adult, having had this one experience, and now you had to shut it down and you went to Bali?
Okay, so you're talking about more so near the end of my, because I would say that I definitely, at the beginning of my journey and learning how to run a co-op, it didn't feel like I was running a business, and I never called it one, because it was so community oriented. And you loved it. It felt like people were paying you to have fun. I actually didn't make money from my co-op for like the first six or 7 years that I ran it. That's why I continued to tutor, because I had essentially promised people. That's why people got the deals that they did. They were getting like a box of produce for $47, but it was worth $80 at Whole Foods. So I'd always promised people I wouldn't mark it up so that I could like keep the prices the same. And then I ended up getting into tutoring, well, not to tutoring, but coaching people this way so that I could make extra money so that I could continue to do it. But yeah, my first 6 or 7 years of co-op, I made $0. It was my passion though, and I did it because I loved it. And I would go to sleep at night, Sabir, envisioning me giving other people boxes of light. Like every time I gave somebody a box of produce, I was like, this is just a box of magic and it's just going to heal your life. And not that I was naive at the time, but I just had so much zest and enthusiasm for what I did. And I just was obsessed with it. I loved it. And yeah, I mean, it showed. I showed up every single day and wanted to be there. 100% wanted to be there and didn't want to be anywhere else. I wanted to be in parking lots with produce, basically.
Just one call out, so Kristina, one call out for the audience. If you guys visit Kristina's YouTube channel, around that time, I think, do you remember the episode where you actually, there's a very detailed episode of how you were feeling as you were closing down the co-op and stuff. There was a video, I remember watching it.
Yeah, it's called Why I'm Closing Raw Fully Organic. It's on YouTube. It's a sad video. I really tried hard not to cry in it, and it was hard. I made it while I was in Bali. And now I actually don't remember the question you asked me before about transitioning my business.
No, just learning. So one part of it, one hard lesson I think there in the growing pains is why having some sort of a margin to keep going is important. Like that's one aspect of it, right? Like making some money. Like it doesn't have to be you're making, not that you're selling $80, but if you were buying it for 47, maybe it could be sold for 55, so that it covers some expenses.
Well, I think what ended up making the co-op successful long-term was the numbers game. Like we ended up having like some weeks, 600, 1,000, more than 1,000 people pick up.
Wow.
So if my profit margin was even just $1 on each box, that was enough to help me start paying people to help, right? Because then you think about, all right, she has like a lot of boxes coming in, but then you're also not taking away too much from people. But there was a way to figure that out. But keep in mind, we didn't have a brick and mortar, so I didn't have to pay rent, and I didn't have I didn't have a brick and mortar or a shop that I had to pay like monthly rent or taxes on. That's why we used parking lots
or utilities or anything like that.
Yeah, so we kept the costs low so that people could get the best deals on their produce. That was the most important part, and the whole co-op was mainly volunteer run. I only had a couple of people that I brought in at a time to really help with things. But yeah, it was mainly volunteer run. And I think that gave people zest for life as well, that they could come and contribute. And it was fun.
So here's the thing. When you are going through any journey, right, especially in business, there are two things. If you're wise to it, you learn two things, right? One, you learn about yourself, right? Like what inspires you, what makes you do the hustle, or what angers you, what pisses you off, all of it, the positive and the negative. And the second more important thing is also learning about working with people, right? And learning to deal with people, because every person, they have their own personalities, right? Not everybody's Kristina, not everybody's Sabir. They're their own, and not everybody thinks the same way. So what did you learn from that experience at the co-op?
Oh my gosh. We would be here
I told you I'm not going to
day.
be easy on you, Kristina.
No, it's just that I have so much to say. I could be there all day. That co-op changed my life. I mean, I learned every lesson, not just about business, but just about dealing with people and personalities and healing and guiding people on their journey of health and wellness, and learning about different foods and fruits and vegetables. It was a 360 journey, 100%. And I miss it. I really miss being around those people. And I really miss that experience. You're going to have me start crying right now. Dang it, Sabir.
I don't mean to, by the way. This is not one of those shows.
I know.
We're not going for emotion here. It's just.
But I'm a Pisces.
It says,
I forget this often that I'm a Pisces. I can't control it. honestly, I miss and love the community aspect of it. And I loved the people, and I loved the way it was run. It was something you just don't see nowadays anymore. You know, everything is so, how do you say it? It's so commercial and so not intimate, and you don't get to know people here. It's like now we're social distancing, and there's no touch. Mm-hmm. Like I would hug every person who came to pick up a box.
Well,
you know,
during the current world events. By the way, I cannot say that name. Otherwise, I don't want my video to be flagged for selling something that I'm not doing. Given the world event that's going on right now, right? That's a safe term to use, by the way, on YouTube videos. Given that, I would say don't hug anyone. Don't do that right now. You know,
but that's what I'm saying. Those are the things that you learn the most about. And if someone ever, like, I'll give you another instance, totally different. If anybody ever had an issue with their box, like I had some people would like come back, and I had a lot of haters online, by the way, who never even came to pick up boxes, but a lot of people who hated me because I believe I was sharing a positive message and they were jealous, or for whatever reason. But in the cases that there was somebody who didn't like their apples, or they had dented apples, and they'd return the box and they'd be like, look, I don't like my apples. And they'd be so upset. They'd yell about it. And it was like this huge thing. The more I began to listen to people like this, or how they responded to different situations, I realized it wasn't about the apples. It was very much about what was going on in their life and what was going on with them and what they'd going through. And so I would just sit there and just kind of talk to them and ask them about their day, and then it would all come out, right?
So Susie, is it really the apples? What's going on with you?
But that's how I got to really get to know people and their personalities, because when you're around that many people all the time, you get to know so many different personalities, and you get to know what triggers and boundaries and all these things. But more importantly, you get to learn the community aspect of doing business, which is, you know, knowing people's names and having return customers and not just one-off sales, and the beauty of building connection, you know, and also at the same time building connection over something that is healing and good for you, you know. So it's like, it wasn't like a book club we were getting to read each month. It's like we would share recipes and everybody was getting better. And sometimes I'd see people show up week after week and reverse health issues or lose weight, and I'd get to see these transformations on them, and that was just so cool for me, you know. So
you move on to Bali. Somehow you land in Bali. I don't know. I didn't know anything about Bali until you told me about Bali, by the way. I don't travel that much, so I do travel, but not to Bali. Now you go through this transition, and then out comes, because we have roughly like 10 minutes left on here, so I do
go forever, but we have 10 minutes.
Yeah, more value, even more value, and thank you, by the way, for sharing that and kind of pouring your heart out, you know, based on what you learned. See, I tried to pull back a little bit so that you didn't cry. I didn't want you to cry. So you go through this, and what they say about Bali, it's funny that you kind of find yourself, or the goddess of, I don't know, what is that saying in Bali, that there's a goddess there or whatever, and then she kind of tells you what to do in your future. I think that was shared with us when we were there. So you go through that transition, and out comes the new Kristina that we see, right? And I'm going to actually come back to how the co-op and how Universe actually was giving you a practice round, you know. So that's
but is it really a new Kristina, or is it just more of an expanded Kristina who understands more life lessons and has better boundaries now?
Yeah, it's growth. It's growth. Yeah. That's what it is. It's growth, definitely. So outcomes, you're putting out a lot more content on YouTube, which I do want to ask you about. How do you get organized and inspired? But also outcomes, this retreat. There are a lot of other digital products that you put out, an app that people do this, and then there are now every other aspect of Kristina comes out, not just before it was just co-op and doing some coaching, right? Now in this new transition, you have a lot of different revenue streams that come out also, and also you're helping people in many different ways, not just one way, which was just the co-op part of it, right? Or coaching.
So I'll say this. I started my YouTube channel like maybe about 7 years into my co-op. And one of the reasons why I started it was that I could help the people in my co-op and community learn what to do with their boxes that they went home with. One of my first YouTube videos ever was me coming home from co-op one day and putting a box on the counter and being like, all right, everyone, we're going to make a smoothie with our box this week. Because everybody would always come up to me and be like, look, I love our box. I love kale. What do I do with it? So that was the beginning of my journey on YouTube. And eventually I ended up having to split and do 2 channels. I had my Raw Fully Organic channel and my FullyRawKristina channel because I realized I couldn't keep sharing personal things about my life on my co-op channel because sometimes people just wanted to do co-op stuff, right? Mm-hmm. And some people just wanted to follow me. So here's the thing. Raw Fully and Fully Raw are the same words flipped backwards, right? So I ended up creating FullyRawKristina by flipping the words Raw Fully Organic around. And so essentially, I started my YouTube journey but way before my co-op had ended. And so that was a different thing. And I started developing my app maybe about a year before the co-op closed, but right after the co-op closed, maybe about a year right after, maybe 6 months after is when my app finally launched. And I think I don't know, but I think the app company was like freaking out because they weren't sure what was going to happen. And I had written a book that had come out a couple of years before my co-op closed as well. So in the time frame, I would say that I've released an app and I've started doing retreats. And the reason why I started doing retreats was not only because I miss community, but originally I was encouraged and inspired by my good friend Joe Cross. He was in the documentary Fat, Sick, and Nearly Dead. Oh, yeah. And he is a wonderful friend of mine. I love Joe. And when I closed my co-op, he was one of the few people to reach out and be like, "Hi, babe. Do you need me? I see things are happening over there and I'm worried for you. See you crying in Bali. I got to help you out." And so Joe,
he's from Australia, right?
Yeah, I was trying to do his accent, but I can't. But
anyways, he hopped on a plane and get to Bali in like 2 seconds from Australia, right?
He's wonderful. He's wonderful. Anyways, he actually asked me if I wanted to co-host a retreat with him in Spain. But he did the majority of the legwork for that. He just wanted me to come and see if this is something that I felt like I could do. So I went and I co-hosted that retreat with him, even though he did everything. And he was such a sweetheart. I taught there. And, he gave me the opportunity to see if this is something that I actually wanted to do. But he showed me that there still can be a huge community aspect of it. It might be a smaller group of people, but you can connect with them. And eventually I decided to come up with my own company, Fully Raw Retreats, but that I wanted to do retreats my specific way for healing. Because I've studied a ton of different retreats out there and none of them are doing what I'm doing. And it's so hard to find a full raw food retreat that incorporates all of the healing and wellness elements. A lot of times they'll feed you breakfast and then tell you can do whatever you want in the day. And then they have one speaker and then a dinner or no dinner. And it's just so hard to find something that encompasses everything. In my retreats, I really feel are your entire day is mapped out for you. You don't have a moment to spare.
I remember.
You're connecting with people the whole time. And I try to fit in as many modalities and elements into the week for you to experience as possible. So yeah, that's how I got into retreats. And Bali has become a very special place for me because I really feel like it's helped me move forward and healed me. But I was supposed to have had a retreat in St. Lucia this year as well. We had to postpone it until next year because of world events.
Thank you.
Yes.
So now, So that's kind of the middle. Now where you are in the beautiful islands of Hawaii. You know, that's the proper pronunciation of the name of
Hawaii.
where you are, Hawaii, and specifically in Kauai, right? You just moved there. So what's going on with your life? What are the next chapters?
The next chapter, well, I've been looking to, so just so that everyone knows, this wasn't just like a random move, Sabir. I know I was talking to you about this before. I've been looking to transition out of Houston for years.
Oh yeah.
I just haven't found the right place. I would have loved for it to have been Bali. But ultimately I felt like it was so far away from my family, and you can't really, can't really live.
I offered up New York and Alaska, but she said no.
No, I'm not a cold person. And I had explored some other places like Costa Rica, and I would have loved to have been in Lebanon, but the political situation is just not there. And the closest thing that ended up being close enough to Bali was Hawaii. Yeah. So last year, Cash and I came visiting, and we jumped around and were looking, and then November as well. And then in February, I came back with my mom, trying to figure out if this is something I really wanted to do. And so we made it happen. But coming specifically with a purpose that I want to be able to grow my own food this time around, and not just lead a co-op, but I genuinely want to grow my own food and live sustainably, and hopefully allow that to bring a new journey into my path and teaching people how to do that as well.
The volcanic soil is amazing in Kauai.
Yeah. By the way, Sabir, I don't really want people knowing what island I'm on. Okay. She's
not in Hawaii. She's in Fiji.
I'm not there. We'll just let people guess where I'm at right now.
Nobody's traveling, Kristina. Nobody's gonna go there.
I know. Well, just to give context, I've had some pretty awful stalker experiences. Not that I wanted to end on that note, but I'm super careful about where I share that I am now, because I've had some bad experiences.
People go to Fiji. That's where Kristina is.
Yeah.
So actually, in the final couple of minutes that we have, what is the $100,000 expert insight you want to give based on all of the growing pains you've had in your personal brand and business? What advice would you give to young entrepreneurs, or even when I say young entrepreneurs, I don't mean that they're 16 years old. They could be 85 but they're young as far as entrepreneurship goes. What advice would you give them?
I would say it's not worth sacrificing your passion to. It's just not worth sacrificing your passion. There's always a way to make it work. And with consistency and dedication, you can achieve anything. There's no magic pill or secret hack that will make it happen for you. It is.
Sorry, guys. I don't know what happened to Kristina's connection. I think she may have just dropped. We'll just wait a little bit for her to come back and join us again. So let's see where she is. I mean, this has been a phenomenal interview. Can you guys see me? Michael, can you see the stream is still live? We'll just wait we're almost out of time, so let's see if she comes back. We'll give her 5 more minutes. I mean, if I had music, I would play music right now. If I had royalty-free music for you guys, so that you guys can hear that. Thank you, Michael. So we're just waiting for Kristina to come back. Maybe she may have had some internet connection. Yeah. We're all solo in this world, Michael. Yeah, she's responding to me. Let's see. Maybe she had some. Oh wow, yeah. Her her computer crashed. So we'll just give her some time. Let's finish it up properly, because she was sharing with us her $100,000 final insight. Do you guys have Tom, Mark, Michael, and others who are watching this live? If you guys have any questions, if you want to queue it up, we can extend it a little bit more, so that we can we can ask her when she gets back. So if you have questions related to running your business or personal brand, please pose it here. So when she comes back, we'll ask her. Sorry about the technical difficulties. There we go. Kristina is back. Here we go, Kristina.
So, sorry, I had to change rooms because I'm not sure what happened, but I did it quickly.
All right.
Basically, I was saying, for those who wanted my last bit of advice, is that there's no secret pill and there's no quick hack.
I thought you were trying to go for a cliffhanger here. We don't have. This is not episodic.
I know. Apparently, the universe was like, I didn't want me to share that message, but we're going to share it. I have found that, I've never had one night where I just had like one night of fame where my account grew 100,000 in one night. That's never happened to me. It has been a slow and steady climb for the past, I don't know, I've been doing this, 14 years, 15 years, raw vegan, and 11 years of my co-op, and I've been online for years. It's a consistent, dedicated practice. And I find that that's, if you want to grow something, that's where it has to be at. So Sabir, maybe you'll agree with me.
Yeah, it's a patience game too, right? It's not abrupt. It's not. So Kristina's overnight success, how long did it take?
My overnight success took 15 years.
15 years. Yeah. Because people see the end results. They don't see the struggle that people go through. Actually, I promised that I'm going to go back to how the universe was prepping you when you were doing your co-op, because the world was hit with the current world events that we're going through. And I think that practice actually helped you really think on your feet and help quite a lot of people in the state of Texas, right? Around the city, at least where you live. And you want to say a little bit of that, and then we can close it out.
I mean, goodness, I would hope so. I would hope that I created an impact in my community. That would be the goal. I mean, I know I definitely grew close to so many people in the Houston area just because I saw them every week. And even if I didn't know them that well, we bonded over fruits and veggies, and that was connection. Sometimes that was the connection that we needed. So yeah, I'm really grateful for the journey. I'm working on Kristina 2.0. I don't know if I'm fully there yet. I'm like Kristina 1.5,
You version yourself, huh?
I'm versioning myself, yes. But I do believe that we expand and we grow, and they're not punishments, they're lessons, and they're not our demise. They're our expansion, and we have to look at them like that. It's our perspective. So,
well, Kristina, thank you for being with us today and sharing your stories. Parts of it, even though my intention was not to make you cry, you did cry a little bit. It's okay, but I tried to pull it back a little bit so that I don't want people hating me for making you cry.
Perfect.
But thank you for sharing that. I think every entrepreneur goes through that kind of a journey. It's just like a self-discovery journey, learning about people, learning about their skill sets, learning about all of those things. That's why, having known you for this long and the journey that you had taken, I think it was highly relevant to kind of share in that your story and your growing pains with the audience, so that they get to learn it. And for the least, there will be therapy for a lot of business therapy for a lot of entrepreneurs. To know that they're not alone. There's a lot of reality behind learning and like being open to learning and being very open to accepting who they are, and as they go through the experience, and not kind of limiting themselves to thinking that it didn't work and that's why they're a failure. There's no such thing. It's always lesson learned. Like the co-op thing, you didn't know that 10 years later there will be a world event that's gonna, and you would play a role in it by bringing fruits and food and stuff like that to a lot of people that needed it at that time. So you never know. I mean, I heard it. This is not my saying. I heard it from someone very smart, said that the best things that happen to us in life are the things that didn't happen to us. And that's because many people think that everything has to happen to us in order for us to learn. Sometimes the best things are you didn't get that job, you didn't get that contract, you did not get those things. You were fired from a job, or you were let go from a job, or something like that, or that client didn't sign with you. Yeah, that's great, but if you had signed that, you would have been so busy that this other big client that just came in, you would not be able to service them. Something like that.
Yeah.
You have to look at, there's a bigger purpose and a bigger reason why we exist. So just hopefully that brings them value, and thank you for being part of This Week with Sabir.
Thank you, Sabir. Thank you. It's so nice. Thanks for having me. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you for joining us, everyone, and see you next week. We have many more guests coming up. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.